Alan, welcome to the Visionary Life podcast. I'm super excited to sit down with you today. And just as a personal anecdote, I first discovered Rally Beer, I think when I was in Barrie for a wedding this summer, and we were just grabbing some pre-drinks and the branding really stuck out to me. So I grabbed a few of them. And then a couple weeks later, I was doing a mountain bike race and there you were. And then a few weeks later, a friend of mine launched an outdoor adventure community and she's like, oh, I just connected with this person. And I just felt like Rally Beer kept coming into my consciousness. And I'm like, I got to reach out to this team and get them on the podcast. So really excited to hear your story and to dig into all things Rally Beer. So thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah, really excited on my side to be a guest on the podcast. Been following you, on LinkedIn and social for quite some time. So very excited to hear. And it's always great to hear about other people discovering our brand. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. So hearing that you saw us at the mountain bike race, that means a lot. That kind of pulls at the heartstrings on my over here. And great that you see it at the LCBO too.
Yes. Yeah. It's in my world, I guess, because I'm part of these adventure communities, I guess it's everywhere, but I cannot wait to actually dive into like why you chose that niche and everything. But to set the stage, I think let's go back a little bit. What were the origin or what was the origin behind Rally Beer? Like when did this light bulb moment go off that you were passionate enough about beer and brewing and adventure to create a business about this? So take us back.
Yeah, so I know that we always use the light bulb moment. And I think I do have one. In fact, I know I have one because I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing. And I'll get to that in a minute, but it even starts way before that. So, probably the two, relevant things about me, I've always been a craft beer fan. Well, not always, maybe since I was about 17, 18 or so. And I actually got really into home brewing when I was about 19, 20. So I was into making beer, I would say I was mostly curiosity driven. So I really wanted to learn how to make it. And, ultimately I went away to university, studied hard. My parents were proud. I got a master's in economics. I studied overseas in Scotland. And then I came home and immediately went and got a minimum wage job as an apprentice to a brewmaster at my kind of local brew pub in my hometown of Oakville. So, certainly wasn't, economically minded at the time, but again, it was mostly curiosity driven. So I wanted to peel back the curtain. I was quite into making beer at a small scale in the garage kind of thing. I think we're making like 30 liters at a time or so. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of my friends were going into the finance world, working for a bank and whatnot. And that was sort of the path I was on. But ultimately, I decided to go spend close to a year. I apprenticed a brewmaster. It was a small family-run business, so I really got to see every part of it. We got to make a lot of beer, learned about the packaging process, cleaning, all that fun stuff, and a little bit of the marketing and event side. Mm-hmm. So that's, been a pretty constant thread in my life since, certainly since university, from making beer and then kind of dipping my toes into the business. Ultimately, I didn't stick with it back then. That was 2010. I was young, had some student loans, was, ready to move out of my parents' basement. So I did, switch career paths. I went and worked for a lot of software startups in Toronto for kind of the next 10 years. And I had a great time. I got, amazing experience building teams, but was never passionate about the products really that we were working on or selling. So I always was trying to brainstorm, what is my thing. And, I always wanted to kind of jump out on my own as an entrepreneur. But during those 10 years, I got just further into my action adventure sports. So I'm definitely that person that goes down the rabbit hole a bit. I was big into skateboarding and snowboarding growing up. Then it was kite surfing and, every paycheck was going towards a new piece of gear or a trip. And then I was into mountain biking, doing a lot of mountain biking in the Don Valley when I was working in the city. And then in 2019, I bought a gravel bike, and that was my sort of first foray into endurance sports. So, I had the gravel bike, and the first thing I did was sign up for the Butter Tart 700 kilometer bike ride around Ontario, all off-road, cruise trail, fire roads, ATV trails, and that kind of thing. And my cousin, who's like an Ironman athlete, he's like, Al, you cannot do this. Like, you do kiting and snowboarding, you can drink beer. He's like, when you're doing this, you got to be like on your nutrition, watch your heart rate. I had to get a heart rate monitor. So I got really into that stuff. Started learning about, functional foods, nutrition. How was I going to fuel my journey? I was attempting to do it in 4 days solo. So I got really into it and really passionate about all these products. So, crazy bars. I was really into the Noon electrolyte tablets on that trip. So, I'm eating these bars and gels, maple syrup, electrolyte tablets all day in my water bottle. But at the end of each day, I would always roll through a small town, find a pub, and just kind of have a beer, just sort of toast the day, kind of chill out for a second and kind of soak in some of the vibes from the day. So yeah, it was really on that trip. And then, it was that was when the light bulb occurred. It was on that trip, unhappy in my work life, not sure where I was going. And, putting these electrolyte things in my water bottle all day, drinking a beer at the end of the day. And I was like, man, I wonder if anyone's, combined functional ingredients in beer before, because it seems to make a lot of sense. My favorite beers are kind of after a big bike ride. I always have a beer in my hydration backpack when I'm mountain biking and whatnot.
Essential.
So yeah, it was an essential piece of gear for many years. And so literally did have that light bulb. I was sitting on the saddle for like 12 hours a day. And I had the idea to combine functional ingredients and beer. And soon after, I said to myself on that trip, like, I'm going to go for it. I had my phone with me, so I was Googling and not seeing a ton of kind of products in that space, but a few kind of burgeoning brands doing it in the States. So, I could see that there was sort of an emergence of it. And just got really excited and started diving into it and getting back into home brewing as soon as I got back from that trip.
I love that. And I think it's cool because some people might think like, oh, craft beers, like that's totally saturated in the last 5 years. But with any business, it's like, well, what is your edge or what's your tilt on what's traditionally being done? And for you, it was like, well, I'm now an endurance athlete and I still like to enjoy beer, but you wanted that functional element. So I think for anybody listening, like no market is saturated if you have something slightly unique to layer on top of what's already being done. So I love kind of that merge between what you were passionate about in the like endurance world and also like you like to enjoy the beer and you had that history. And it's like, it took those 10 years in your 20s to figure out how you could merge everything and make one really epic brand or product out of it. So I think that's super neat. So after the BT 700 that you did you like go home, quit your job, say, I'm leaving software, I'm starting this beer? Did you go all in? Or did you take a more calculated, like stepping softly into writing a business plan and starting to stash money away? I'm sure everybody's curious, like, what did you do when you came home from that ride?
Yeah, I would say the first thing I did was started to kind of dust off my home brewing equipment. So I hadn't brewed at that point for, like 8-9 years kind of thing. So I hadn't used it in a long time. So I started dusting it off. And then I went out and bought and procured a whole bunch of white powders, all the different kind of electrolytes. And I was kind of that crazy friend at the party, putting some white powder in my beer, kind of just testing it and just kind of experimenting. So that was the very first thing I did. But yeah, within about 60 days, I had incorporated a business.
Wow.
But I wasn't, and so I was kind of mentally and emotionally all in. But I was still working my day job and, evenings and weekends, I was sort of tinkering away, I would say, trying to figure out like navigating alcohol and how to navigate the LCBO and, started looking at like, what am I going to call this thing and a logo and all that kind of stuff. So I just sort of slowly started picking really small tasks that I could, conquer in an evening kind of thing.
And what were some of those like early successes that made you believe I can do this? Because I feel like that period of like trying to bring a new product to market and having no experience, like bringing a beer to life and actually selling it, you're kind of like, can I do this? And there's a lot of mindset blocks that come up, but I'm wondering, like, did you have any early successes, whether it was people telling you it was good or somebody saying like, I will buy this product as soon as it's ready? What were some of those early milestones that made you believe I can do this and I can build out this brand?
Yeah, I think it was the two that jumped to mind is, getting my two co-founders involved.
Okay.
So they were immediately like, yeah, that sounds sick. Like we should definitely like, let's go for it. So my co-founder Spencer was, I actually slept on his couch one of the nights of the butter tart. He lives in Thornbury, Ontario. And I ended up moving into that apartment when we started the business to save money for about a year. So, he was like, let's do it. Let's give her, like, this sounds like a great idea. And then getting my, one of my childhood best friends, Mike, he's an amazing, art director and, very talented artist and designer. And so getting him excited and starting to see how he was thinking about putting together some of the visual elements of the brand. That's when I got really excited about, okay, like, yeah, we can build this into really not only have this cool product, but, we can now build this as a brand, like a living, breathing thing, have emotion in it. And then that's when I started getting, really excited about kind of the brand building and the community aspect of it. So as I just peeled back the onion, there was just more and more things that started to make sense.
Yeah.
Having a community to go to and a product and all that good stuff. So
so
those were
true.
some of the early wins.
It's like once you take that first step, the next one presents itself. And it's not until you get started that you see all these opportunities coming your way. And some people, like, they're so paralyzed with fear, they never take that first step, but that's actually required to see, is this going to work? And like, is this going to take off? So love hearing that story. How did you find your first customer? Like, you're obviously brewing, you're figuring out like what makes you guys unique. You're putting the branding together, but coming to the point when you're ready to sell it, like, how did you find those first few customers and where were you selling?
So, I mean, it's funny to think about it, but, in a lot of ways, I don't know how I found the first customer. I'm not really sure. But the biggest win, like, that happened relatively early on, like after we started building the brand and putting everything together and coming up with the liquids, was we actually were able to convince the LCBO to grant us a listing.
Wow.
So that's, they don't give those things out too lightly anymore.
Yeah.
And they very rarely will give out a listing to a business that has no sales anywhere else and doesn't exist anywhere other than maybe in an email address.
Yeah.
But we had a really unique angle and a unique pitch to the category manager at the LCBO, where, we really just pitched him that, hey, this is a bit of a different purchasing occasion. It's not another IPA that's just going to cannibalize some other IPA that you've already got on the shelf. Yeah. We were really pitching it as kind of, it was going to grow the category. And so we were able to sort of hit on that for him. And, he took a really big gamble, I think, giving us that listing. And I remember having countless phone calls in my mom's basement, just me, and letting him know, like, hey, we've got the whole team here, like, just trying to make us sound like a really big organization. And luckily, he did give us that listing. So, when we had the listing, we knew we had somewhere where we could go and sell it. And then luckily it's beer. So a lot of people like to try new beers. So early days, you're going to get a little bit of traction just because, like often as a consumer myself, I see a new product on the shelf, I grab one or two to give it a try.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that, but we also did really well with social media early on. So we had some triathletes pick us up, and definitely the endurance sports community picked us up first.
Okay. I want to double tap quickly on getting into the LCBO, because obviously that's a huge milestone. And I'm thinking you probably like had something special about this pitch. So obviously the product itself was unique. Do you have any other tips for having a remarkable pitch, or like, what was it about your conversation with the buyer of LCBO that made it stand out? Like, anything you want to share around somebody who might be going through a similar journey soon?
Yeah. So we definitely, when you're trying to crack into a market, especially a pre-existing one, trying to speak about how it's going to grow the category rather than maybe just replace, like if you're coming out with a new chip company, like, are you just trying to replace Miss Vicky's, or is it kind of a new chip that, you know, it's going to be in the car or something rather than at home? I don't know, but trying to come up with a kind of a unique angle. Otherwise, you know, we were definitely calling on trends happening inside and outside of the category. So a shift towards better for you, you know, so just trying to identify what are those tailwinds that are occurring, you know, within your product realm, but also beyond it, you know, to get that kind of longer term lens into where things are going. You know, calling on those kinds of trends was important. And then I think it's just like being yourself and being authentic. So, you know, I think that's the biggest thing that we always had is, you know, I always told Neil, I was like, look, like we're Ontario owned. I'm a local person. We're going to go to these sports. I actually play and participate in these sports. Like I go out and sweat with my customers.
Yeah.
And I kept leaning on that. You know, we don't want to just have the big guys come in and own this and then just shift our dollars, you know, might as well be sending our money to Brazil or Denver. You know, definitely playing to him that, you know, we want to tell a really authentic story and that we're, you know, independently owned and operated kind of thing.
I feel like that's becoming more and more important these days is the storytelling behind the business and in being yourself and authentic and letting that shine through. And I know that is such a big part of what you do at Rally Beer, especially in positioning as more of like an endurance or athletic type drink. I guess before I dig into kind of the niche you've chosen, can you just explain to somebody who's never tried your products before when they say, what is Rally? What do you say? Like, how do you explain what the brand is?
Yeah, I think at its core, you know, and we're still learning how to create a brand. And, you know, I didn't necessarily come from this world, but, you know, what I like to say is that Rally, we're all about brewing beer that inspires adventure, inspires adventure and activity.
Cool.
So, you know, we brew functional, better for you beers. And, you know, we really cater them to that active community. So our beers are unique. So, you know, our flagship beer is rich in electrolytes. So, you know, it's sort of that perfect replacement to drinking kind of a mainstream beer or craft beer after a mountain bike ride or après skiing. We've really tailored it to that occasion. You know, that's where we do all of our QA. You know, I'm not doing it out of a pint glass ever. It's always out of a can at the trailhead kind of thing.
Cool.
So we definitely kind of live and breathe that active outdoor lifestyle, and our beers are meant to inspire adventure. They are better for you. They have functional ingredients, you know, they're rich in antioxidants. It's a really high quality, you know, unpasteurized, unfiltered, natural product. And, you know, we're really excited about kind of bringing more people into that fold. So, you know, we believe the outdoors is for everybody. And we want to kind of get more people playing outside, basically.
Such an interesting conversation because I think a lot of people are just terrified that when they niche down, they're going to lose out on a massive subset of customers, right? Like choosing to be positioned for endurance athletes or people who love the outdoors. It's like, oh, you're actually missing out on people who don't identify with adventure or the outdoors. But I'm assuming it has actually served you well because anyone who does have that similar passion for nature, adventure, they feel ultra connected to the brand. Were you ever worried that by niching down and choosing this target market that you would lose out on customers, or were you pretty strong in your belief that this was the way to go because you cannot speak to everybody with a beer brand?
Yeah. I don't know that I have an intelligent answer to that. I think I was just like had the blinders on, and this is what we wanted to do. And this was the only thing we could do in an authentic manner.
Right.
But I know like one of my favorite things to do is, you know, and I get into these sports. I then always find my friends who I think will love it, and I love teaching and introducing it to people.
Yeah.
So it's always been about, you know, Rally is not just for the Ironman triathletes. We want, you know, we do couch to 5Ks as well and take people on their first snowshoe.
Cool.
So, you know, we definitely want to make it accessible. We're also very aware that a lot of the sports we play in, like cycling, it's high barrier to entry, white dominant places.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're trying to use our brand as a force for good to make them more accessible and kind of bring more people into the fold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think since COVID, especially, like you still can't get your hands on a new bike right now. So we're definitely potentially riding some tailwinds of, outdoor activity is kind of one of the few safe things to do these days.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky in Canada to have lots of green space. So, I do feel like it's a growing and kind of a big enough target.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, we hope to keep growing it.
So, in the last couple of years, I'm wondering what have been some of the marketing or promotional efforts that you've done in order to connect with your dream customer? Like, how have you been showing up? And especially with COVID over the last couple of years, making it a little harder to sample in stores. But I know you've still been getting out there, still
Yeah.
connecting with the customers. So, what have been some of the most impactful marketing efforts that you guys have done at Rally?
Yeah, so obviously we launched in COVID, so we're like 100% kind of COVID business, and we're speaking today just as kind of another wave is sort of coming at us.
Here we
Um,
go.
so yeah, it's been really challenging on that front. But yeah, like some of the fun stuff, we've never been allowed to sample in store, for example. That would be, traditionally probably the first thing you would want to do as a new beverage brand is, do a sampling inside of an LCBO, for example, and then, people pick up a couple cans. Instead, to be, socially distanced and everything, that first summer when we launched, we were doing stuff like filling a Yeti cooler up with beers and hiding it in the woods in Collingwood. And then we were putting it out to the trail running community. Hey, we've hit a cooler of beers at this GPS coordinate, go on your trail run, find it, grab a beer, snap a selfie, that kind of thing.
That's
So we did
epic.
lots of really fun, unique, kind of experiential marketing activations, I guess we can call it. And then, we just sponsored, grassroots community. So the other one that really springs to mind is, Dave, who's our head of sales and social impact. Early days, we launched Rally for Good, and we instantly connected with this charity called Don't Mess with the Dawn. The Dawn Valleys, where I met the mountain bike community. It was kind of like my solace when I was working downtown, get into the trails at night. It's an amazing resource to have in downtown Toronto. And so we did trail cleanups and ravine cleanups through COVID. And we would bring beer, and everybody who participated in the cleanup would get a free beer after, and just kind of get to hang out distance, in the massive Don Valley and drink a beer and connect a little bit. So we were able to connect with people, through the outdoors and through kind of causes that a lot of us care about, like, protecting our playgrounds and whatnot. Yeah. So the Don't Mess with the Dawn has been a really special relationship since day one. And I think it's what we can attribute like our authenticity to. So now we're getting the opportunity to go, sample some beers at the Patagonia store. I don't think that stuff can happen if you don't put in that kind of sweat and, pick up some trash with your hands. So, we just haven't been shy to get our hands dirty.
Mm-hmm. It's so cool. I spent many years working in experiential marketing. So hearing you talk about like hiding the Yeti cooler with beer and then getting people to take a selfie, like to me, that is such a brilliant idea. It's low cost, a few $100s for you to execute it. But I'm sure you saw a lot of social return on investment, like through Instagram stories and that. Is it easy to measure the actual return on investment of purchase through these experiential stunts? Or has that been something that like you just have to trust that all of these efforts compound and add up?
It's a lot of trust, I would say.
Yeah.
But I know that it works. So
yeah,
we did a lot of experiential stuff in Collingwood, for example, which was our backyard, when we started. And so it's no surprise that Collingwood and Thornbury LCBOs, far surpass
yes, of
sales
course.
at other stores. So there is that, but obviously playing in a regulated space, it is hard. We couldn't sell online, still can't legally sell the alcoholic products online. So it is obviously challenged to exactly trace back, and a brand experience with, somebody picking it up off a shelf. But, we look at the trends and we do get data, and we're definitely data driven. And we are lucky that we get great counter sales from the LCBO on a weekly basis. So, you can measure it, and it's definitely important as a business to, onboard those tools early. So you can kind of bake that into your process from day one. But certainly it's been a lot of kind of trial and error and experimentation. And, like you said, if it's just a few hours of my time and a couple cases of beer, it is low cost for us to try. And that's been a COVID thing. I think if it wasn't, we probably would have been pressured to go and sponsor, huge marathons, and, might have fallen on my face trying to activate, at that scale that early. So, there was some silver linings, I think, to COVID, and on letting us start small and super authentically.
So where is the business at today? Like, how much help do you have? What is your role? What are you focused on right now? Or is it just like all over the place because you're in startup phase still?
Yeah, you're catching us still, definitely startup phase. So, I mean, on a full-time basis, it's just myself and Dave. Dave's our head of sales and social impact. So he focuses, his efforts on, growing distribution, and then on our kind of philanthropic partnerships. So managing, Don't Mess with the Dawn, getting those activations on the books. So it's really Dave and I in the weeds on a daily basis. We've grown tremendously. We've just secured a few weeks ago our second listing at the LCBO. Nice. So we've got a 99 calorie, 3.5% IPA.
I love that one. So good.
Yeah. I was a big IPA fan. IPAs are 7-8%, and they're generally chock full of sugar. And so I know I was just getting crazy hangovers after having only a couple. So we wanted to bring kind of a more like a Michelob Ultra nutrition profile, but still have some IPA flavor, and just be able to have a couple of them and not worry too much the next morning. So really excited to have that. And then we're really excited about the non-alcoholic product, which we've just launched. That really unshackles us. So, we're building our DTC business, and, we're opening up conversations with kind of grocery and how can we get this product, potentially. And now there's tens of thousands of stores that could sell us. And we're having a lot of fun selling it at bike shops and ski shops and kind of small stuff like that. So yeah, we've grown from kind of the one beer to 3 SKUs, introduced the non-alcoholic, which really cements our commitment to kind of better for you, active living. Can't always do the alcohol. I still drink both, but I'm definitely substituting a lot of my alcohol for the non-alcs. And we are growing the team. So, we're hiring a sales rep right now. I am realizing that, you got to play the street game in this business. You can't just be playing in the trails the whole time. So we are, getting, like-minded individuals on the team to help us go to LCBOs, grow that distribution out. That is unfortunately kind of basically a door-to-door sales kind of process, unless you've got big bucks with the LCBO. So we're starting to playing that game. We realized we had to be able to get to the scale that we need to get to. And otherwise, we're starting to work with bigger and bigger brands. So, anyone that follows us on social media is seeing more stuff happening with brands like the Arc'teryxes and the Hokas and the Patagonias of the world. And we're working on bringing kind of really cool experiences to life with their communities. So we're kind of partnering in unique ways to bring really cool experiences to the outdoors.
So epic. Yeah. I can't wait to continue following along with all the exciting things you guys have going on. I'm curious, I know there's probably a lot of stress associated with this chapter of the business, but what is one of the best parts of the creation or of running the day-to-day operations of Rally Beer?
Yeah, there's a lot of good parts. I've definitely gotten to go on a lot of fun bike rides and fun trail runs. and meeting our community. Like it's been something from day one. Even the big event we did, which was we were the beer sponsor for the Spartan race. They had about 5,000 people out at Blue Mountain for their obstacle course. And we were operating the beer tent, but each one of us from the team went out and ran the loop as well. So you're kind of like, we were understaffing the beer tent so we could go sweat with everybody and have some fun. So, we like to, it is supposed to be fun. It's not all about, this is a the most nutritious beverage. It's, a better for you choice. It's supposed to be fun. We want to toast and celebrate some of these wins and some of these kind of training journeys with people. So yeah, just kind of watching the community go out and go on some really crazy adventures has been the coolest part by far.
Yeah, I'm assuming that a lot of your meetings, instead of being on Zoom, they can just be on the trails or doing a hike when possible.
Yeah. And then there's still lots of spreadsheet work and supply chain work. I mean, there's no shortage of that too. So, it is, people think it's all fun and games. It's definitely a lot of, Excel work and some tough conversations. There was a scare of getting cans even during COVID, and there's always something going on that side of things too.
You become a professional problem solver when you enter into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. There's always a couple fires burning, and you just kind of gotta pick your battles a little bit. But being able to live the brand has been the most rewarding part, and get some new people taking part in these sports.
So inspiring. Now, do you guys have a master plan for like the next 5 to 10 years, or are you just taking it one day at a time at this point? I know there's, two camps here. Some people are like, I know exactly where we'll be in 2032. And other people are like, no, we're just, one day at a time and see where this goes.
Yeah, we're somewhere in the middle. I think, we've got a vision, but we're flexible and we're always learning from our community. So we want feedback. We want people to send us DMs on Instagram. I personally respond to every single thing that comes in.
Cool.
We don't have any agencies helping us on any aspect of the business just yet. So, we are in that lucky position where we're super agile. So we can pivot and make changes, very quickly. So we certainly do that. But we are starting to try to, build our vision board and, what is our 1, 3, 5 year kind of vision for the business. It is a highly competitive space. So that kind of thinking is becoming critical, just in our ability to survive. So, I wish this was just kind of a fun side project, and it kind of started that way, but I'm 100% all in, personally, financially, at this point. So, we are starting to get a little bit more strategic in how we're going to approach the market. But yeah, it all comes down to kind of inspiring adventure and how can we best do that. Right now, it's through our kind of beers that we love, but we're not writing off that there couldn't be other, avenues or opportunities that come our way.
So I'm sure after listening to this podcast, our visionary community wants to support you. So as somebody listening, as maybe a beer drinker or somebody who really likes your story or your brand, what are the best ways that we can support you and maybe help you get into LCBOs or help you, like channel us to the right spot? Like, what would you ask from the person listening who's like, this sounds epic, I want to be part of this. What can we do?
Yeah, so we are building a community. That's sort of first and foremost. So, easy things like follow us on Instagram at Rally Beer Co. Check out our website, drinkrally.ca. Actually launching a new website this afternoon. By the time you're all hearing this, you'll see it. So, join our newsletter. We're going to be doing more kind of exclusives on there and more community building and event kind of activations to that side of things. Otherwise, it sometimes surprises people, but the best thing to do is if you see us on a shelf at your local LCBO or beer store, just pick up a can or two. That's all it takes to start getting the product moving. And, other consumers see when a couple cans are missing from a tray, oh, I got to try it. So, there is a lot of very simple things for you to do. If we're not in your local LCBO, you can certainly ask the staff and they can bring it in. They have the power.
Oh, wow.
They want to serve their local community. So the more people that are asking for it, the easier sell it is to us when we show up and introduce ourselves, because they know it's going to sell. Otherwise, anyone who's, maybe taking part in Dry January right now, you can buy the non-alc online.
Cool.
That's amazing. We've got a subscription offer, throw a gift in every month. So some fun swag coming. And yeah, just follow along and hopefully come out to one of our adventures. There'll be lots of events coming up, snowshoes, hikes, skis. Once the snow melts again, we'll get back on the bikes and into the trails. But yeah, we'd love to see you all in person and, just celebrate getting outside.
So cool. And before we wrap up, just want to emphasize how neat it is to hear you say community first. I think that's what so many businesses miss the mark on, is that they go straight to like, how do we sell? But I think the secret sauce is always in build the community and then like get them warmed up to this product. And then they'll be a lifetime customer, right? They really feel the brand. They see the person behind it. They feel the energy behind it. So I just think that's an important point to emphasize. And I think it'll serve you guys well in the long term. So it's really awesome. I will link all of the places that our listeners can find you in the show notes. And we certainly thank you for your time sharing your story. I know it's probably been a crazy past few months, but we really appreciate you sitting down on the Visionary Life podcast and just cracking open the journey. So cheers. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelsey. You did a great job with the Visionary Zoom. So I'm looking forward to following along and listening to more.
Awesome.